Good morning, y'all. Welcome to Monday, February 12th, the Board of Selectmen for the town of Cliftonborough. Can we honor America with the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to begin with public input. Okay, we'll move right ahead with library. Come on down. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you? Not a whole lot statistically to report subsequent here. Let's see, on the circulation side, on the statistical side, we're still not sure that we're getting all of our database usage counted. What shows here is a substantially lower number than we experienced for most of last year, so that's still a little question, but at least we're getting some data now. Also, the ILL server at the State Library still has not been repaired, and they have stopped even trying to repair it. They are now looking into purchasing a new system. The expense has been authorized by the general court, and they are now testing. They've taken the top 10 libraries in the state in terms of their ILL use, and they are trying out a couple of different new systems. I don't think we'll be going with the same vendor that we just had. So we are still processing ILLs the way it used to happen 30 years ago, by phone, it's just a laborious process.
By Pony Express.
Yeah, we're doing our best, but people might have to wait a little longer if they're looking for something that we don't own and we need to borrow it from somewhere else. We are still a net lender. TFL has pretty much always been a net lender, which is an indication of the strength and depth of our collection. On the other side, on the patronage side, we had 6 new patrons in January, all of whom are adult residents. And we had a couple of good programs. I think that's pretty much it for statistics. We do have a couple of nice stories to share. We loaned a bunch of pairs of snowshoes to the Moose Mountains Regional Greenways first children's snowshoe shuffle, and got a very nice letter in thanks saying the event was a success in part because you loaned snowshoes to kids, and your snowshoes were such a help, and we appreciated your generosity and flexibility. So it's really nice to be able to support community efforts like that, and thanks to the Parks and Rec Department for providing the snowshoes in the first place. As you probably know, the first graders come over once a week for a field trip, and we read a story, and they choose a story to take out. And as they're checking out, as they check out, they get in line and sit down on the floor and look at their books. And this was an overheard conversation last Friday. Paige says, "I love books," and Tobin says, "That means you're a bibliophile. I'm one too." And then it went right down the line. "I love books too, so I'm a bibliophile." All of them. "I'm a bibliophile too."
It's a movement.
Yeah, no, it was wonderful. It really was. As you also probably know, the trustees held their first public meeting to answer questions and provide information about the expansion. There's a pledge card in there. We had a good crowd. There were some concerns raised about the wetlands. And Gordon will be looking into that this morning, I believe, just to make sure that we're on target here. I think you've seen this, have you not? Yeah, the superimposition of the topographical map over the hand-drawn wetlands map. So just to make sure that we're all okay and that this can happen, we'll get that topographical map certified by White Mountain Survey. Let's see. No.
Is this our copy? Or your copy?
It's mine, but if you want to keep it, you can. We have another one.
Maybe we could make a color photo of it.
Sure. On March 3rd, the Friends are sponsoring a lunch, a Vicky Zimmerscheid lunch, and a program presented by Sandra Macy, who's a certified laughter leader. Figure everybody can use a laugh at this point in the winter. She talks about the benefits of laughter, even a smile, physically, emotionally, mentally, how it changes your brain, and can affect even the quality and length of your life, interestingly enough. So if you're free on Saturday, March 3rd, come on down and have a few laughs and a terrific lunch. We will also be having 2 more open forums on the library expansion. One coming up this month on the 24th, the same time, 10 o'clock, and one next month on March 10th, also at 10 in the morning. So, the Friends are putting together a Get Out the Vote campaign. Any questions?
I have none.
No. Lunch and laugh, huh?
Lunch and laugh. No, can I leave these? Just a couple of extras? Okay.
Can she do that at town meeting?
Huh?
Can she do that at town meeting just before?
Well, maybe we'll just bring a couple of exercises along with us.
Dan can lead that.
That's right.
Is that just assaulted?
Thanks.
No,
Said you should leave a laugh thing at town meeting.
no, I wouldn't insult you for anything. Are you kidding me?
How you doing this morning?
I'm good, how are you?
Oh, okay, thank you.
So we have 2 building permits so far. I've done 44 inspections. The bidding contract for Sodom Road went out to HEB this morning. I had someone come in to give me an estimate about cleaning this place, but I haven't heard back from them. And the rebates for the mini splits, we got that check. It was for $28.50, so that's been deposited, I believe.
That's for these.
That's for these new AC.
Well, they certainly have
units.
worked, haven't they?
Yeah. So,
Your office is a little warmer when you come in, isn't it?
yeah. That's all I know.
This is just correspondence?
That's what went out to today.
Okay. That's in our correspondence. Is it a different company you contacted for the cleaning?
Yeah.
I have left notes on that office in Wolfboro, the one that you
Yeah, yeah,
contacted, that
so-
gave you the original estimate.
Yes, I know.
Obviously, they're not
So,
interested in our business, but
see if we get an answer. So,
anything else for Jack?
no.
Okay,
Thanks.
you have a
Thanks,
great
Jack.
day. Who else is there available to come on down? Hi, Clyde.
How's it going? Just for an update, went with the budget committee the other day. 2 of you were there. Don't knock you down, Chip.
Thank you.
And they had asked for a copy of the avoided costs. I worked the matrix out and gave an explanation, not only for the committee but also for the public that view the tapes. But it gives basically the avoided cost matrix gives the comparison of our actual revenue that we bring in, and then the amount of money that we save by getting rid of stuff a different way other than the compactor. And we'll basically go one example. If you look down at cardboard on the left, we shipped out 45 tons Normally, we ship out 66 to 70 tons, but we ended up shipping a load of cardboard out just prior to 2017 in December, and we ended up shipping a load out in January of this year, so we only had 2 shipments last year, just the way it works sometimes. 45 tons, that would have cost $4,500 had the cardboard gone into the compactor. It's about 10 tons of the load, and it's $100 a ton, just to figure it out easy price-wise. We didn't spend anything to get rid of the cardboard. We baled it and shipped it out, and we made $8,373 in revenue. And so we avoided the $4,500 it would have cost us had we shipped it out in the compactor. So good, a good reason to recycle, separate out the commodities, and bring them down to us, and we'll find a different way to get rid of it and try to save some money. But bottom line, the next to the last column, when you add up all the commodities, we had an avoided cost total of $33,987, and revenue, actual revenue that we took in of $101,690. So our total net worth to the community is about $135,677.
Can I comment
Yes.
on this here?
Yeah.
As you know, I make 2 or 3 trips up there a week, and one thing I've noticed is especially your per diem guys,
Yes.
without being recycling police,
Right.
without being the Gestapo, they're nicely nudging people in. If you could just take that dry cardboard box
Right.
in, it saves the town money. Or if you just take this extra 6-pack of, I'll say, tonic bottles
Right.
in and put it in the glass, they're just very nicely nudging people along.
Well-
Please tell them thank you.
You bet. Yeah, with non-mandatory recycling, obviously, all we can do is recommend, and you have to pick and choose and be careful how you approach that with some people, but they do a pretty good job up there, so.
So on the recycling cost,
Okay.
for instance, glass, $1,554.
Right.
What is that?
We take the glass inside, we put it on a conveyor, and we crush it, and then we haul it over to Wakefield to get rid of it.
Okay.
Once it's at Wakefield, then NRRA sends a really huge portable, on the road glass crusher, and they come up and they're the ones that change it from the aggregate we have, and they crush it, and it gets into that fine powder that can be used to make roadways and that kind of stuff. So, and that costs $30 a ton. For however many tons we take over there, it costs $30 a ton for them to fine tune it to make it an aggregate that's usable.
What would it be a ton if I just threw it in
It'd
the,
be $100 a ton to get rid of it in the compactor.
oh, there's a savings
So-
right there.
The recycling costs are all external costs, they're not internal costs.
Correct.
Like the glass crusher or the
Right,
baler.
right. That's all given. So in the glass case, we shipped out 52 tons. It would have cost $5,200 if we sent it out all in the compactor. The way we got rid of it with the $30 a ton, it cost $1,554. So our avoided cost is $3,646 that we saved by doing it our way versus doing it out in the compactor. We didn't make any money on the actual revenue, and so that's a better example of we actually saved money, but we didn't get anything in hard cash. And the 2 on the bottom, the one in the parentheses, $3,875 for electronics and the 2207 plastic. It costs us money to get rid of the DES, New Hampshire DES directs that you have to get rid of the electronics a certain way, and it's just, so those are expenses that we track separately. It doesn't take away from our savings, we're just directed to get rid of it that way, so relatively easy. And our January totals, are basically 8 solid waste containers, 5 construction debris containers, 2 plastics. We got rid of 300 gallons of used oil, and we got rid of 1 truckload cardboard shipment, which will get a check for $2,519 for that. The price of commodities is still down and going down, still with the China issue going on about what they're accepting, what they're not accepting. And there's various opinions about when they think it may get better, if it does get better.
But back to your avoided costs, right now, we actually, on plastics, we have a net cost of,
We have a net cost of 22, oh, no, I'm sorry, 5207 to get rid of it. We could take it out and bale it, but it would cost us a tremendous amount of money, because baling plastic in a vertical baler is really, really time consuming. The first couple of buckets you put in there are okay, but once you get about half full, every time you raise the plunger, it expands back out. You know, unless you have something to crush the plastic and keep it crushed, it doesn't work. So the best way, the most economical way for us to get rid of that plastic is doing it the way we do it with a 30-yard container. We take it outside, pour it in a 30-yard container, and Waste Management takes it. And they charge us in between $30 to $40 a ton, which is very reasonable.
And don't you do the tag-along trailer, so you're paying one fuel
Yes,
charge?
absolutely. We actually pay less for the transportation, so.
And I know as I go around at my TAC meetings and whatnot, it's plastics and electronics that they're scratching their heads if there's any inventive way. They
Right.
just- there just-
It's constantly-
There just isn't.
And that, and the, and also like the fluorescent bulbs and the mercury and those kind of things, you have to constantly check to get the best price at different places, so.
So walk me through the plastic.
The what?
You just said it's gonna cost $40 a ton to get rid of?
The plastic.
Yeah,
The way we do it, it costs $40 a ton. That's why we have the $5,207 cost. We send out about 30 containers a year of plastic.
it wasn't.
The last line,
The math isn't working for me. If you got 30 tons at $100 a ton, that's $3,000, right?
no, plus transportation.
Okay. So if it just went in the compactor, it'd be
Yeah,
$3,000.
if you look on these, on this, I don't have it because this is the first month and I don't have the cost in it. But if you look on, every time there's a plastic line,
Yeah.
like on the 5th of January, I'll put in on that cost line what the transportation and the weight costs. Hold on 1 second, I think I got, actually, I just got this waste management bill for January. MSW, 30 yard, and so when we get the bill, in the bill, each shipment, you'll get the tonnage,
Yeah,
1.79 and 0.94. So what we're paying to get rid of it, $39 for 0.94 tons, and $130 in transportation, so it's $299. So what I put in that column right there is a $299 cost.
right.
And at the end of the year, I add up all of those costs, and that's where you get the $5,207. So it's a combination of $40 a ton plus transportation costs. And that's where you get the 5,207.
Okay. I'm sure I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
so we're saving $60 a ton over putting it in the MSW
Absolutely.
compactor.
Yep.
But where we're losing it is
We're not-
transportation,
What-
right? Because we're taking a container that has no weight in it, basically, and transporting it to their facility.
Correct. Correct. But we would have been paying transportation as well if it was put in the compactor,
Right,
okay?
right.
Yeah,
So,
well,
but where does that show up in our, the $100 a ton does not include the transportation? Is that
Where
right?
it shows up, okay, what I've done for the top, like if you look at the top line,
Right,
where you have MSW, you have cost to remove via the compact, 104,700.
right,
Our cost to get rid of it was 98,940.
I see.
Okay.
Yep.
Now what I've done is I've taken those transportation costs and what we save,
Mhm.
okay, and that's what we're billed. That's what it would have cost had we gone with singles,
Mhm.
okay, and so the avoided cost was 5760
Right,
by shipping out two containers versus one container.
but I guess coming back to the plastic down here,
Okay.
the $100 a ton is a calculated number. We know that's basically what we pay,
Right.
but that doesn't reflect the avoided transportation cost that you would have on the MSW, right? In other words, to look at the top line again, 104.7 is $100 a ton, right?
Right,
And then the 98.9,
is what it actually cost us.
okay. So it's,
That's off the bill.
right, okay,
And that bill is transportation and tonnage.
all right. So that $100 then is assumed to include the transportation,
Correct.
okay,
Yes. Yeah.
all right, I understand.
Understand that?
Yeah, I'm
Good?
there, I guess I'm there. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a little bit, it's a little bit difficult.
So you got three things going on with the plastics.
Right.
You got-
We ship mixed as opposed to segregated.
Right.
That brings the value down, okay?
Right.
Because somebody else, for it to be reused, has to do the sorting down line.
You have to do sorting and
Right.
baling and storing.
We don't compact it, which means that when it goes loose, the transportation component is huge.
Correct.
Compared to if you had a more efficient, a denser pack.
Right.
And the prices are down.
And the prices are good. And that's a biggie right now.
Sure.
There's a lot of places that are talking about doing away with the recycling of it all. And just sending it to the landfill.
The problem with that is
Yeah, it doesn't.
all of the commodities that get recycled run in a cycle, whether it be paper, plastic, whatever. So sometimes they're worth more, sometimes they're worth less. If you say, we're gonna stop recycling because they're worth less right now,
Right.
then it goes the other direction and your mechanism is going for dealing with it. And you've just institutionalized forever, we're just gonna throw it in the.
Well, that's why I said right from the start, even before me, whoever made the decision to go with the vertical balers and bale 2 products or bale 3 products versus single stream versus everything else. And we stood by the way we do it,
Yeah.
and we've been very fortunate.
Yeah.
Just the way the numbers have worked out, we've been
Well,
very
the single
fortunate.
stream folks have seen a huge increase in what they pay.
Absolutely.
Because of the revenue that they get down the line out of those materials has gone down, just like it has for us.
Right.
And,
Well, they don't get any revenue.
well, I'm talking about the guy that hauls it away.
He
All
gets
right,
it.
the revenue that he gets from the recycling, he uses to offset some of his costs.
Yeah.
But the revenue isn't there, so he's gotta jack his,
Right.
his,
And the towns have lost the
Fees.
revenue forever.
right,
So you're used to getting $135,000 worth of revenue, and all of a sudden now you're getting $10,000 or something. That's a big shock.
right.
And it sounds good if you got a 3-year contract, but the minute that 3rd year is up,
You negotiate the next contract and,
Yeah.
you pay the piper.
so. Anything else?
Anything else, Clay?
We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Clay.
We have a few minutes before Jim is here. Either Budget Committee or you as moderator here as a department head, or you're just
I'm
carrying
here
the mail?
gathering information. I did see that you have a warrant article by petition.
We have a petition article.
Yeah, so I'd like to,
Do we want to talk about that now while he's here, or wait until public?
No, that's fine. Move that, yeah, go ahead and move that up.
Okay.
I'm not concerned.
Sure. Yes, we got a petition warrant article. Karen, did you go and get some information about that? Did you see?
Diane did, yeah.
Okay.
And it's in the folder.
See mine.
On the New Hampshire Municipal, yeah. You want me to comment on it, or?
It's right there. I found it.
This is the warrant article. Have you seen a copy of
I
it?
haven't seen anything.
There's a copy of it. Thank you. Under correspondence, did you get a response?
From New Hampshire Municipal?
Yes.
Yes, it's in one of the,
Actually, that's not a copy, Dan, that is
That's the original,
That's the, yeah,
That is the-
that's the article that was
I think it's
presented.
the very bottom, Chip. The very bottom envelope.
You folks read the response?
I saw it, yeah.
Yeah.
I read it briefly, Karen. Could you just brief us on what you recall?
I understand that the wording is not correct to be accepted by DES.
Okay,
And therefore, you've been recommended to vote a certain way.
okay. Is it the word that
Did I say DES? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's DRI.
Sorry. I was just doing something with DES earlier, sorry.
if without reading the entire thing, as I understand it, warrant articles on the floor can't talk in direct leasing payments unless it's the last year of the lease.
The second half of what you just said, I'm not quite sure about, but I know that that warrant article can include leasing vehicles.
But it can be corrected from the floor.
According
I
to,
don't know about that part.
according to the, was it Municipal Association, there can be a floor correction by the petition.
And they recommend that it be
Oh, yes, he has to speak to it,
that it
that's
be the
right.
petitioner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Once it's brought before the meeting, it has the same standing as any other warrant article
Right.
and can be changed by amendment or whatever. But it's also true that a town meeting cannot obligate a future town meeting.
Right, that's why they have to take lease out of the
Yeah.
Yeah,
picture.
exactly.
And has this wording been run by the DRA?
Yes, it has, and that's the issue we're talking about, so.
The
Yeah.
issue of whether or not,
Look, why don't I read the article, let me read the article so that everybody knows what we're discussing.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
Yeah. So this petition article was presented to the town on the 5th Tuesday before town meeting, which is the deadline for presenting petition articles. And the article says to see if the town meeting will vote to establish a capital reserve fund for the purpose of purchasing or leasing vehicles and equipment for use in the fire department, police department, code enforcement department, transfer station department, and highway department, and further to appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be deposited into said fund. The full amount will come from previously raised unused funds in the unassigned fund balance and not from additional taxation in 2018. No purchase or lease utilizing these funds will be made without express approval by warrant articles submitted by the selectmen or by petition. And my understanding is that if you look at the RSA that talks about capital reserve funds, a capital reserve fund cannot have as a use lease payments. And further, I think DRA has said that the only time you can use capital reserve funds on a lease payment is if it's the final payment on a lease, which represents a purchase. So, my understanding is DRA, if this article were passed at town meeting as it's presented here, it would be disallowed by DRA. Which is why if the petitioner wants it to be valid, it needs to be amended at town meeting. Now, it cannot be amended before town meeting because the deadline for submission of petition articles has passed. And
There's an
this
interesting
board,
nuance here.
and this board cannot,
The board
by
can't change
law,
it.
cannot by law change it.
The board can't, but I'm not sure that the petitioner can't change it.
According to what we've been told, that's true. It has to wait for town meeting to
Okay.
be.
It is
to be
now
changed.
cast in stone until it's brought up at town meeting.
And my guess is the rationale is somebody went around and got a bunch of people to sign a petition. So if he's gonna change it, you have to go through the whole process with a signed petition with the changes in it again. But that ship has sailed. The deadline has passed for going through the process.
Okay.
So it gets presented as it's been petitioned, and then can be amended as you.
Has anybody discussed this with the petitioner?
This was just information we got since our last meeting. We haven't met since this was had.
I read this
presented.
morning.
What's that?
I read this morning.
Okay.
So we have to vote no, we don't recommend. And I think the budget committee has to vote that they don't recommend as well. At which point it comes before the town and the voters can decide which way they want to go with it. But we can't recommend a warrant article of any kind that isn't enforceable or workable. And this could pass the way it's written, but there's nothing gonna happen. We can't take money and put it into the account or
I understand.
anything like that.
From my point of view, it would be prudent to be sure that the petitioners, in this case you should say petitioners, understand the situation so that there isn't a lot of confusion at town meeting when somebody tries to amend it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking that they'd come in where they presented the warrant article last week. They'd be in today.
At least a representative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a bad idea. We could
Yeah.
have a discussion about the amounts and whatnot, but that's not gonna happen.
Right. No, I think having a capital reserve fund to accumulate money to be spent on replacement fire apparatus and vehicles owned by the town is a great approach.
Sure.
And allows us to do what we're